I'd like to call the meeting of the Land Use Committee for July 25th to order. Could I have a motion to approve the minutes of May 31st, 2011?
So move, Anderson.
Second, Karski.
Thank you very much. Any discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? No. Motion carries. We have any discussion, or no, I guess we're going to go to discussion then from the groups that we have in front of us today. Mr. Schmidt, we have some discussion on the sign study group. Would you carry on, please?
Yes, thank you very much for giving us the opportunity to speak on this item today. We have numerous members from the sign study group in attendance, and a few did have to leave prior to the presentation. But the sign study group has met approximately 12 different times over the last 9 months on this item. What we'd like to do today really is introduce the sign study group report to you as well as the public, make it available to them. And in the end, our request is, could we please proceed forward and draft an ordinance for changes to the sign study group, bring it back through the process of the sign study group and back to City Council for a future adoption. That's really what we're requesting. Again, over this last year of looking at the sign study group and looking at all the issues with the signage, the public stakeholders have agreed that there's a need to update the sign code. I think there's a lot of stakeholders out there, citizens, business owners, representatives, that realize that things could change, things could be done better, and we want to proceed forward and do that. There's some initial recommendations in the executive summary of the report that we would like to add and edit some definitions, that multifamily signage should be separated from single-family signage. We should amend the type of signs, that temporary signs should be permitted, that wall signs should have different square footage, that we should have consistency between our C2 zoning district and our C4 commercial zoning districts, that we should limit the number of exempted signs that are out there, and that we should address a clear and concise due process in how we do signs. Again, we at this point have those objectives stated by the study group, and we've started to look at what the guidelines are. We have not drafted the ordinance. We've just come up with these ideas and say these are the things we want to do, and we want to proceed forward and draft an ordinance revision and bring it back forward to this group.
Anything from the committee?
I have numerous stakeholders here. You could ask questions of them, but they're here really in support of proceeding forward with changing the ordinance.
Councilmember Anderson.
I guess without seeing some of the proposed changes, there's not really a lot of questions I can ask. I do want to say thank you to the committee for all the hard work they've done up to this point, and hopefully we don't make them do a whole lot more on this, but I look forward to seeing this legislation come in front of us.
If I might, Mr. Chair,
yes.
I would echo what Councilor Anderson said in terms of thanks to the group. I've been on a couple of these zoning groups too, and it is a lot of work and it's a lot of study. I did briefly go through the report a couple different times, and I have already had feedback, and I know that you guys know that I have, in terms of thinking about, in specific, the Parade of Homes type signs, really temporary, really small. I'd like us to think about, and I know that the group had gone ahead on a consensus basis and said, we're not going to do anything with it. But if we can think about that as a possibility, I really would like to see us try to figure out how to write something into the new ordinance to allow something. I know that we don't want to have lots of different kinds of signs, and we don't want lots of exceptions. But this is one of those things that we let these folks kind of fly under the radar unless somebody tells on them. And they do it every year. Maybe we need to be a little more welcoming to particular large events like that. And so I have had feedback. I'd really like to hear, if there are options. I know that I have an ordinance from Fargo that kind of outlines how to make that work for very specific things. So I'd like to be involved in that kind of conversation. But otherwise, I think it's a great first step in terms of where we headed with the little flappy feather things we talked about over and over again, all of those things. It's just, it's huge. We're becoming a huge city, and so it's exciting to watch this change. So thank you.
It's a tremendous and a time-consuming process, I know, when you get, because they're not just two kinds of signs in this world, are there? Are there any people in the audience who would like to speak to this? Jeff, when would you like to come back before this committee and either tell us how you're doing,
Sure.
or come with an ordinance that we can take a look at?
Probably in the spring. What I've talked to the stakeholders already about is once I got your concurrence today that to proceed forward with ordinance amendments, we'd start up the meetings again and start drafting specifics. So then again, just like Mr. Anderson said, we could see what the language would be. So I'd start meeting with the study groups already, start putting in specific languages, sending you maybe drafts, and then coming back to you with the proposal and here's how the ordinance will be changed. And again, as you mentioned, it's freestanding signage, it's wall signage, it's temporary signs, it's banners, it's wind feathers, it's all those things, and each stakeholder has a little bit of aspect to it that they'd like to talk about. So we try to take care of all those things so we can bring you one package versus having 40 people up here speaking about 40 different items.
I'm just trying to think of some timing on this. Could the clerk's office help me with that? Would we be looking at March, maybe, something like that?
Yeah, it really, honestly, it depends upon how the study group, how often they want to meet, and when we
Right.
come to a consensus, because we don't want to force anything and not have it agreed
Right.
upon.
But I also don't want to see this go into
Okay.
December
And if you
of
give us a time
2012.
frame, that's what we'll shoot towards.
Right. You know what I mean? We can let it go, and then we're going to have some of the same problems we have now and continue on, and I'm sure that's not what they want either. And so let's look at a time frame. Yes, Deborah?
If I may, and just because we're codifying so much of the ordinances now, I don't know if December is too soon of this year, but if we could possibly get some of those ordinances redone ahead of time, that would be
Yeah.
helpful. They could be recodified then in the new sections, but otherwise,
Yeah, that's the thing. We're recodifying all of that, and that way it would all be done and nice and neat. Is there any way that could happen?
Honestly, no.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, because we understand what the city attorneys are doing. We've basically said that we'd be a standalone. They can go through and recodify it, and then we'd bring in our ordinances after the fact. Because as well, a lot of you are aware, but especially Mrs. Erpenbach is aware. She's been on. We're changing landscaping. We're changing the zoning districts. So once we get all the signs amended and where we want, then we need to make sure that they match up with the new zoning districts.
Okay.
So we said, we're not going to hold up the codification. That's going to go forward first, and then the landscaping and the parking lot standards, and
Okay.
we're going to bring that forward to you as a package.
Don't have a problem with that. Then can we set if it's that big a project, then would March be an acceptable time for goal for you guys to look at coming back to this committee? Yes.
As I
Councilor
say,
Anderson.
this is still pretty much a work in progress when we talk about
Right.
signs, because in the last council, actually, I believe Vernon and Greg might remember this, we looked at yard sale signs and realtor signs and placement and time limits we were restricting them on too. So I see this as just a work in progress as we move through all the different types of signs that we have within the city and trying to figure out how we want them to be used.
So am I hearing you right then that you're going to bring part of the ordinance, one ordinance, or you're going to bring it all at once?
We're going to bring it all at once.
Okay.
Yep.
That's what I thought I heard.
Get the signage section done, make sure it's working with all the districts, make sure it's working with the landscaping, working with all those sections, so that, again, what we'd hate to do is bring in a section of the code, have council adopt it, and then have it be in a conflict with what the next section comes in.
Exactly.
So we will get you the sign final draft, and so that you will be able to review that, but we probably won't get it through city council and have it adopted until all those other pieces are in place.
Okay.
Jeff, are we going to look at those electronic signs too? They seem to be becoming more popular.
Yes.
The big ones and
Electronic
everything.
message signs.
Yeah,
Yes.
because I see them in certain areas, and
Yep.
and I've been wondering when that
And that's-
type of technology is going to get pushed into areas that there's probably going to be conflict.
And that's again where we've come up with the objectives from this last study over the last year. We have some guiding principles. Now we have to look at and see how it fits into the terminology and the legalese to get it in front of you. But we have at least the framework started.
Super. So we'll note then that we expect to hear back from you in March, and
Yes.
don't forget the airplane signs either.
Correct.
Just thought of that. Thank you. Thank you, everyone who's had a part in this very much. We appreciate it. Thank you. Next on the agenda is the... oh. No, we won't have a vote. We'll just, we've noted that they'll be back in March. Yeah. Yep. And the annexation program is next, and we have our same fine speaker or presenter.
I just passed out a copy of a map, annexation priorities, and the annexation program is a large draft report over on the table. This is also just an informational item to Land Use Committee, to City Council. Our last city-initiated annexation was in beginning of 2003. I don't think really any city council members were on City Council back in 2001 and 2003. City-initiated annexations, or what the neighbors like to say is forcible annexations, are very contentious. They take a very long time, and we have approximately 55 more of them out there. As you can see from the map, they're the large residential neighborhoods that grew up in Lincoln County and Minnehaha County, and as the city grows up around them, they need to come into the city of Sioux Falls. State law says through 944-1 that all properties should be contiguous to a city and should become part of that municipality. It's how do you do that? How do you annex the property in? Well, that's what we did. We put it into a program that said, this is how we're going to annex property. I wanted to get it in front of this committee today, start talking about it in front of City Council. We don't have one eminent in front of us. What I'm starting to look at right now is maybe in January of 2013, starting to bring one annexation forward. They take, again, 2 to 3 years to do each one of these annexations, but our program that we're putting together is when you start an annexation, it should go through the same council. What you'd hate to have happen, just like what you talked with on your other large ticket items, is you don't want to start an annexation and then have an election and then have the new council come in and go, I wasn't here when you started this process. You need to start the discussions with that body so that everybody's involved at the same time. And again, what annexation means is, when do they come to the city of Sioux Falls? How do they come to the city of Sioux Falls? What about the water, the sewer, the drainage, the streets, the roads, the lights, all the utilities? How and when do those take place? What about library services, fire services, police protection, zoning laws? All those things have to be addressed. And it's different for all 55 of them. It's not, here's the cookie cutter, this is how we do each and every one of them, and that's why they take 2 to 3 years. It's very staff intensive, it's very neighborhood intensive. You sit down with them, you have neighborhood meetings, you say, what can you live with, what do you want, what don't you want? We discuss it, we bring proposals forward to land use, we go back out to the neighbors, we bring a proposal back, and again, after, we hope 2 to 3 years, it's not quite so contentious when we stand up in front of City Council and say, we are going to annex this property in the city of Sioux Falls. So again, the last two we did up on 60th Street and National in 2001, and we did 57th and Sertoma, a small rural residential out there in 2003. Some of the ones that are coming are the Reaperts Edition, Cactus Heights, Pine Lake Hills, Split Rock Heights. I mean, really, really large subdivisions that aren't going to be done anytime soon, but we need to talk to these people And that's really what the intent of the annexation program is when we talk to somebody, you have it in writing so they go, you're speaking off the same sheet of music. You're not telling me something different than you told me a month ago. No, this is what we're speaking off of. So that's what we tried to introduce today.
Councilman Garski.
Yes, Jeff, a question. Do we approach annexation differently if it's already developed versus undeveloped?
Yes, we do. Most undeveloped annexations petition-driven, and so the farmer, the landowner, gets bought out by a developer, and they petition it to come in. Those show up in front of this body. They used to show up in front of this body a lot. I think we had 3 petitioned annexations last year. And so they know when they want the utilities. We don't have to get them utilities. It's not contentious. It's the rural subdivisions that are already on septic systems, on rural wells, have gravel roads, and we say, we don't have septic, wells, and gravel roads in the city of Sioux Falls. You need to switch over, and that begins the contentious discussion.
Okay. Curious on kind of landlocked, like you said, the contiguous, trying to keep the city contiguous, and having, I guess in the southwest part of town, I have a concern out there where just basically for safety, because we won't pave the one side of the road if it's not in the city limits, correct? Even though it's landlocked.
It's that also in Prairie Meadows on here. You can see at 41st and TLS Road, the red one, it's first wave. That's Prairie Meadows, the Klein edition. They have large issues and concerns with us, okay? Us being the big body, because they've had development all the way around them, and traffic goes all the way through their development. Drainage goes through their development. Utilities should go, but they don't, because we can't give them utilities. We can't help them with their utilities because they're not in the city of Sioux Falls. So they call and they say, what's the city going to do about our problems? And we go, that's not our issue. Well, that doesn't work real well when you try to. So how do you we've had 3 public meetings with them, and I bet 90% of the property owners are in attendance when we meet with them. So that's the types of things that you're absolutely correct need to be discussed.
And that area is developed.
Completely with households, yes.
How do we affect fire and police control? Protection.
They have a sheriff and they have a rural fire, service. So even though you look at the map, even though they're in the city of Sioux Falls, we don't respond. Right. I mean, if there's an emergency, we do have a joint cooperative agreement on fire, but we're not the first responders. Okay. And the sheriff responds.
So, getting them annexed in, let's take that one.
Correct.
What would the process be?
The process is that we talk to the neighbors, and just like what we want to do with this program, we let them know that it's inevitable at some point, and then they want to know when is it going to take place and how much is it going to cost them. So you start talking about, well, what we'd like to do is look at maybe in 2012 or 2013, so they all know what time frames it's going to be. And you start talking to them and having them understand. And then what does it mean to be annexed? Well, once you're annexed, it doesn't mean on Tuesday you need to be hooked up on our sanitary sewer. But once you're in the city of Sioux Falls, at some point in the future you have to be on our water and on our sanitary sewer system. So you talk through that process. And again, we don't want to show up the first day, the first meeting, and say, we've already decided. This is what we're going to do. Because again, that's not a cooperative discussion. That's just, you guys are very familiar with how you work through these processes. They should say, Jeff, we would prefer to be annexed at this time and have our utilities talked through in this framework. So that's how we discuss it with them. And so it's, okay, we'll look at it. We'll come back in a month or 2 months and see how we can get this agreement worked out. If we can come up to agreement between the 2 bodies in a month, we show up in front of City Council and say, here it is, a formal resolution to meet all these objectives. But generally, as you're well aware, to get 100 property owners to agree on one thing, it takes a long time.
What is agreement? Like you said, 100 property owners. So do you need 50 plus 1?
No, the agreement is City Council adopts it. They again don't necessarily have the ability to agree. We just don't want them to all be opposed to it. So it isn't a 51%. It's not a number of property owners. We just walk through the process long enough so they go, we understand, we can live with this. We're not they're never happy about it. They never say, okay, we're going to totally support this. They just go, move forward, get the agreement done, and in 2015 we'll start dealing with hooking up to utilities. And that's what we've done with the last 2 annexations, is come to an agreement that they're not going to continue to fight the process. Because again, even in the long run, if there's a lawsuit that they sued the city, state law says it's not a valid argument to not be part of the city when they're already receiving city services.
Councilor Anderson?
Jeff, thank you for working on this again, I guess I have to say. I found last year in the area of Madison and Sycamore, we had some problems up there with emergency services being able to find some of the properties that were actually within the city, but because they were so intertwined with some of these unannexed properties, our emergency services couldn't find street signs to be able to locate, especially one area where we had a couple older ladies who were having medical issues and multiple calls. And by working with Jeff's office and the owners of the unannexed area, we were able to locate a couple signs and get that area identified for emergency services. I drove out there when I heard about this the first time, just trying to find the address, and spent about 35 minutes. I drove by it 4 times, not realizing. So this is a very important issue as far as protecting the public, whether they're annexed in the city or not. And I think you very well described that Southwest issue down there as the issue that it is that the people live within and has Sioux Falls around them, and they believe that they should also be able to get services, and therein acts our problem. So
and most of us know and have heard, and we wrote up in here so that again we have the history of annexations. Norton, Frolic, Hayward, Orchard Heights. There's been a lot of annexations in the past that history still repeats itself, and we hear about them today. So they don't go away.
Okay. Jeff, if you could, you have down here on the map, first wave, second wave, third wave, fourth wave.
Yeah.
On your first wave, what's the time period in
Correct.
there, 2012 to 2015?
Excellent. That's really why we put the program in place and the map in place. Because citizens call. I had a call earlier, end of last week, from someone from Split Rock Heights and said, "Can you tell me when I'm going to be annexed?" No, I really can't. But you are in the third wave. Well, what's that mean? They start to understand it. Well, you're not the first priority. You're the third priority, and we haven't even started in the first priorities. They start to go, oh, okay, so I basically have, 10, 15 years. So it gets back to the time frame things when they go, so can you tell me, is it going to be June? I can't say June, because if we can't get to an agreement, it's not date sensitive. We found that this wave aspect really helps the neighbors go, oh, okay, I feel better knowing that if I'm first wave, okay, you're going to start talking to me, we can start having the discussion, but I'm not going to have it become December. Then again, it's not the city's telling me, the city's forcing me upon these date time frames. Right away, that just becomes so controversial. We just say, you're a first wave, there's a bigger priority than some of the others, and we've set those priorities and explained them in here by how close they are to the city, how much development they have around them, what utility issues they have. It wasn't just, we think you're one and no, there's a reason behind it. And again, so people can look at it and go, yeah, I can see why I'm a second wave versus a fourth wave. So, being consistent.
Thanks, Jeff.
Jeff, a question from me. On the average, can you give me a round figure of what it costs a person when they get hooked up with all this?
Do I have any developers in here? $25,000, maybe. Okay, and we all have mortgages. We all bought our lot. You bought a lot, and then the utilities all came with it in the city of Sioux Falls. These people have mortgages. They have a house, and then we come and say, but you don't have utilities. they think they believe they do, but we need to hook up a water line to them, a sewer line to them, put a new street in, curb, gutter, sidewalks, fire hydrants, electrical lights. So depending on the bid, depending if they do the whole project at once, or if they go, no, I just want to do water, and then next year I'm going to come back with sewer, and then next year $25,000 is a good cost estimate per house, and then again, how big's their lot? And then that's where they go, I'm not paying $25,000 per household.
Yeah, and they forget that they didn't pay that up front like
Correct.
the rest of us did.
Right. Or that there's drainage problems and their sectors are going bad. In the long run, I think that works out fairly well for most Hayward and Orchard Heights. But that first hit is a big hit, and we don't discount that. It's hard. If any of us had to do it, we would not enjoy it either. So that's why we try to go and take the process with them.
Give them a little time ahead
Yeah.
of time. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Again, nothing imminent. I just wanted to start having discussion here. I'm going to start announcing to the public that there is a program. They've known about it, but that it's available for them to look at it and see the maps. And thank you.
I don't suppose there's any comments from the audience?
This one has been available on the website, and then this map that I passed out to City Council is the little easier one from Shape Sioux Falls.
Okay. Thank you, Jeff. Darren Smith on community development and our partnership.
Good afternoon, Darren Smith, Director of Community Development. We seem to have a knack for winding up last on the agenda's long afternoons, but that's okay.
We saved the best for last, Darren.
Thank you. I appreciate that. We appreciate that. Very briefly, we've been in front of this committee before talking about the different economic development activities and the new structure and so forth internally. In a follow-up conversation after, I think, the last presentation a few months ago, a follow-up conversation with Councilmember Erpenbach, I think just maybe curious as much as anything, we talked about these different partners we have internally and externally in economic development. She had asked, well, who are these partners? What roles do each play? How do you guys communicate? And then she followed that up by inviting us back to the Land Use Committee to answer those questions in the form of, again, a brief presentation. So that's what we're here to do this afternoon. The first slide I did want to show just briefly here. These are the major partners in economic development that we have. I don't know that I can say it's an all-inclusive list, but these are the major partners. And we have a few of these represented here today to each speak to their different areas. Forward Sioux Falls will be represented today by Evan Nolte, and he'll cover his slide. Slater Barr with the Sioux Falls Development Foundation, and Jason Dennison with Downtown Sioux Falls, and then, of course, ourselves. The other two major partners would be the Southeastern Council of Governments, or CCOG, and certainly the Governor's Office of Economic Development on a regular basis as well. The reason we identified those organizations to be here today that we did was for a couple reasons. One, we didn't want to bring a parade of people in front of you. Secondly, the organizations, again, Forward Sioux Falls, the Sioux Falls Development Foundation, and Downtown Sioux Falls, what these organizations have in common are that we fund them, we support them financially. And I suppose you could make the case we do CCOG as well, but in a different way as a dues-paying member. So jumping right in here, what I'd like to do is introduce Erica Beck, a manager of economic development. Maybe you've seen her before. She's going to come up and cover our slide for us.
Good afternoon, Erica Beck. We're going to talk just a little bit about an overview of efforts that we've undertaken within the Economic Development Division of Community Development this year, and then each of our partners are going to talk about initiatives that they will be pursuing in 2012. So just to summarize, there are really four key areas that we want to talk about, communication being one of them, because When the reorganization took place last year, and both myself and Brent O'Neill were moved from planning to community development, we stressed that we were going to try to provide additional communication to our partners in economic development as part of that reorganization. And so one of the ways in which we've done that is that we're now communicating as a group. All of those partners that you've seen on the previous slide are holding monthly meetings. We get into the same room together. We talk about ongoing projects, prospective businesses, and we make sure that basically we're approaching it in the same directed effort so that none of us are duplicating things. We're maximizing our resources within our divisions, which is very important, and that we're giving the customers the best service that we have available to provide. We also provide a lot of outreach to existing businesses within the community. Darren and I in particular have been going out and meeting with a number of businesses since the beginning of the year. We're always looking for new businesses to go out and meet with. Our intent on doing that is to listen to them, talk about what types of needs they have, and then to come back to our group and try to figure out ways that we can serve as a resource and meet those needs for those businesses. A couple of examples of businesses that we've met with, including Avera, Sanford, Raven Industries, John Morrell. We really want to try to outreach, though, as much as possible. So if there are other businesses, even within your own realms, that you feel that would be an important service to provide, we're definitely willing to do that. And I know that our partners are also doing that within their own business areas, and so I'm sure that they'll talk a little bit about that as well. That's a high priority for all of us. And not only to existing businesses, but to new businesses and industries looking to move into Sioux Falls also. We want to make sure that we're providing communication through our web pages. That's one of the areas in particular that the city's economic development division wants to improve upon. We want to make sure that we have a larger web presence so that people can find us easier. They know who to contact, where to go for more information about incentives that we have available, what types of projects that the city is undergoing currently. And so we're going to be doing a better job at making sure that our website is in a more relevant area on the city's web page. And it has our contact information and relevant information that businesses need to know about. The next thing is incentive revisions and development. And we talked a little bit about this through the previous downtown plan update. As you all know, we have a basic 4 incentives available in the city of Sioux Falls, or at least that the city of Sioux Falls administers and can provide to prospective businesses and developers. And for the most part, those incentives are really geared around development, not necessarily businesses. So we can't really use those incentives to recruit businesses. They're more associated with the cost of development and decreasing that to make sure that developers can find productive ways to do things within our community. One of the ways that we want to be able to address that incentive for businesses that we haven't been able to do is to work with the Development Foundation on the creation of a discretionary fund. And this is something that we've heard is a necessity just based upon the current times and the fact that businesses change and what their needs are change. And so we want to be able to meet those needs. We've talked a lot with the Governor's Office of Economic Development about this. They have what's similar to a discretionary fund also at the state level, and one of the ways that they use that is basically that meets the parameters of whatever the other programs don't meet. So we're going to be working with them on that fund creation and a lot of our other partners as well, because we want to make sure that we're able to maximize that fund's usage and that we're able to attract high-quality businesses to Sioux Falls. And again, one of the things that you heard throughout our downtown presentation reoccurring, and this is what you'll hear throughout the city, is that there are a lot of fantastic development projects out there waiting to happen, but that one thing that we need in order to make those projects happen are tenants. And so we need to do a good job as a city, and you'll hear about this from evidence later too with the Forward Sioux Falls program, but going out there, reaching out to national audiences and looking for tenants to move into Sioux Falls is really something that we want to grab hold of and try to take advantage of. A property tax abatement program, I talked a little bit about this with our downtown presentation again, but we really have a property tax abatement program for 3 different areas of the community. We have one for downtown, we have one for neighborhoods, and then we also have one that's more related to uses, so industrial land uses. And we want to take a look at those programs in particular. go back, look at them, make sure that they're meeting the needs of developers and businesses today, and if they're not, bring forward revisions to this group for consideration to those programs. Another program that we're looking at is a Section 108 loan program, and this is actually a program that's offered through HUD. And essentially what it does is that it leverages your CDBG allocation specifically for economic development purposes. So what we would be able to do through pursuing a Section 108 loan is to actually go to HUD and tell them that we receive an allocation of roughly $900,000 in CDBG funds, and they would allow us to borrow up to 3 times that amount, specifically for economic development purposes that have to be defined within very stringent program guidelines at the HUD level. We're just on the very, very tip of really searching and researching this program in greater detail, but we feel like it could be a benefit to the city because we really don't have that type of incentive available at the current time. And what we would envision doing with that, with this body's approval, is actually using that for loan purposes. So going out there and using that for bridge loans for development to spur that development on, or even small grants if possible, if they met the criteria that the HUD guidelines provide. The third item, public relations. Again, I've commented on this a little bit within some of these other categories, but we really want to do a good job at talking about Sioux Falls and promoting Sioux Falls at all levels if possible. So even within our local environment and our local media sources, but also at a national level, and you'll hear more about that through the Forward Sioux Falls campaign. And another way that our partners are doing this is through their own marketing efforts. So you'll hear a little bit from Jason Dennison talking about the hiring of a marketing coordinator for downtown Sioux Falls and how they're trying to reach out to a larger audience to gain more promotion for downtown. The fourth is customer relations and partnerships. We want to do a good job, the best job that we can, in ensuring that businesses that are existing within Sioux Falls want to stay here and remain here and expand and grow, but that we're also trying to attract additional businesses to the community. And one way to do that is to provide very good customer service, because we want people to have a good experience when they come to the city, looking for incentives, looking for assistance just in terms of infrastructure needs or what have you. And so what we've done within our division is created 2 economic development coordinator positions. One of those positions is actually current right now, and Brent O'Neill, who's in the audience, is in that position, and he is actually his focus will be on business development. So if a prospective business from out of state is looking for more information on Sioux Falls, they can contact Brent directly. He will serve as a one-stop shop or a concierge, I think, as we have heard from several of you that are familiar with economic development. That's really what these businesses are looking for. They're looking for someone to help them find their way through whatever process they might be trying to find their way through, or just who they should contact about real estate opportunities, or what types of incentives the community offers, or what our tax base is. Brent can provide them with that information. And then also the other coordinator position will be filled by Adam Roach, and we just actually hired him last week for that position. Adam has served as a zoning enforcement officer since January of this year. He was an intern for the planning office in 2007 and really focused on neighborhoods during that time. And his role in our office will again be to focus on neighborhoods, but in terms of redevelopment opportunities. So when we talk to you about the need for Pettigrew Heights, for instance, to have a local grocery store, a core grocery store, he'll be out trying to assist in that effort. He'll also be helping us in terms of facilitating redevelopment options along 11th Street within Pettigrew Heights, or even 14th Street between downtown and All Saints neighborhoods. And so he'll really serve as that point of contact for neighborhood redevelopment, whereas Brent is serving as the point of contact for more of that traditional commercial business development opportunities. Another way that we are working with our partners is on a strategic downtown market analysis. And this we will be conducting simultaneously to our update to the 2025 downtown plan. And Jason is basically our partner in that effort. He has specific business recruitment strategies that he wants to take from that analysis. And so internally we will be assisting him with that effort. And just another way, the last way that we've basically partnered with one of our economic development partners on facilitating economic development within the community is through the Development Foundation. We were able to listen to what Slater's needs were in terms of updating their website and bring forward our GIS department to assist in facilitating and providing them with data that they needed for their website expansion. And so we're really proud of that effort, because that's what we really want to do within the Economic Development Division, is serve as a resource to our partners in terms of economic development and bringing additional businesses to the community and seeing the community succeed as a whole. If you don't have any questions for me, I will turn it over to Jason Dennison, the Executive Director of Downtown Sioux Falls.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Jason?
Chair, committee members, Jason Dennison, President of Downtown Sioux Falls. I'm here today to give you some background information on economic development activities of the past from Downtown Sioux Falls, where we're at today, and just the tentative plans we have for the future. In 1992, downtown identified a need to provide low-interest loans to spur economic development in downtown, so they created the Downtown Economic Development Incentive Fund, also known as DEDIF. It's a 501c6 corporation, nonprofit, funded through investors. Since its inceptions, 60 loans have been approved, totaling approximately $1.9 million. Created 250 jobs, so it's been a great asset to the downtown. Where we're at now, we're in the process of updating our 2008 strategic plan, hosting a series of outreach meetings to identify the needs of downtown Sioux Falls. Where we're at today, we've completed our series of outreach meetings, and one of the top needs, as we've identified it in these outreach meetings from stakeholders, is the need for business retention and recruitment for the downtown district from our stakeholders. What we'll look at doing is transition our DEDIF committee into one of that role of business recruitment and retention, and how we do that. We're just in the exploring that and the transition there. What we really need to do is update our market analysis of downtown. What businesses do we have downtown? One was undertook, I believe, in 2007, but as you know, the downtown environment changes quite often with businesses and companies coming and going. So we need to identify exactly what businesses we have downtown, the customer market segment, what businesses could be supported in downtown, what would be a complementary business mix, and also identify complementary business clusters to really have that healthy economic environment. We'll work closely with community development to really explore meaningful incentives. They're in the process of reviewing those as well. And then from there, we will look at marketing the downtown district, developing a comprehensive recruitment campaign, really using the numbers provided through that market analysis on why downtown is a superior location to conduct business. We'll coordinate with local real estate professionals, and this may come back as a subcommittee of the DEDIF committee, but we'll look at engaging a broader audience of downtown and really continue to reach prospects, follow up with them. We really haven't defined our project just yet, but this is just currently where we're at. We also work close with our partnerships and effective communications with community development, the parking department. The success of our economic health downtown is directly tied to parking, so we'll have to work close with them. Sioux Falls Development Foundation, Chamber of Commerce, and the Governor's Office of Economic Development will all look at leveraging our resources and maximizing those resources to ensure that downtown has a healthy economic environment. Happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next partner that we want to invite to the stand is Slater Barr from the Sioux Falls Development Foundation.
Thank you, Chairman and committee members. I appreciate the opportunity to spend a little bit of time with you talking about the efforts of the Development Foundation. I want to start out by really stating the major activities of the Sioux Falls Development Foundation that you're probably familiar with over time. Those activities that we've been doing for a number of years and that will continue as we move forward into the future. And I also want to relate, I know Evan is going to be talking about Forward Sioux Falls, and a lot of what we do gets intermingled with Forward Sioux Falls because Forward Sioux Falls provides if you will, the fuel that allows us as an engine, perhaps to carry out a number of different marketing programs. So several of the programs that I talk about, some you'll find kind of housed within the Development Foundation's budget. Others you'll find housed within Ford Sioux Falls' budget, but these are the activities that we're kind of directly responsible for carrying out. First of all, very simply, when you think about in terms of economic development organizations, you think about them working with industries either that are interested in relocating to your community and trying to encourage that, or your industries that are already within your community and that are interested in expanding. And so that's just a kind of a basic a role that we have played over the years and that we continue to play as we respond to those companies that are expressing that interest. The second thing I would say is that for a very long time, the Development Foundation has had targets of industry sectors that they thought made sense for the community and that we had something competitive to offer. And some of those targets were industry specific, some were geographic in nature. So some of you may have been in the Twin Cities and heard radio ads that ran promoting Sioux Falls' economic climate as opposed to Minnesota's. Those have been going on for a number of years, and that's an example of a geographic target that has been carried out. We have a lower operating cost, they have a higher operating cost, and we want to remind them of that. The other thing are industry sectors, and we have also had an effort that has been going on for some time where, working with a consultant, we identify industries that we have a competitive advantage from a standpoint of operating cost. So you take a hypothetical facility in an industry sector, you collect the information across the country on what are the various inputs to that operation, and then start running the numbers. And so we work with him to help identify those areas where we have a cost advantage. And then we want to get that information out to the targeted industry sectors through trade journals and publications. That's something that's been going on for a while as well. Finally, out of many things that we do, I would say the third main factor that has been involved in the Development Foundation's efforts has been that of land development and of keeping a steady, long-term supply of ready-to-go, zoned with infrastructure, with utilities in place, land that an industry can come in and that the risk is taken out of it. They know it's available, they know it's zoned appropriately, and they know that they can move quickly to get a facility up and established. Over the years, the Development Foundation is now on its 8th park in the community, and those represent 1,800 acres, and there's about 13, not quite, but there's close to 13,000 employees that work in those 1,800 acres. So again, it's been a very, very significant part of our program over time. What I've put up there before you is to kind of conceptualize some of the promotion activities that came out of the Future Sioux Falls planning process that took place a couple of years ago. And I'm going to start at the very top level, which is that of national public relations. I think all of you were invited, and some of you had an opportunity to meet Development Counselors International, which is a consulting firm that specializes in helping places market themselves. So entire countries, regions, counties, states, cities, that's who they work with. And they really, one of the things that they focus on, and I think which is a real strength of theirs, is through, been in operation since 1960, and so they've developed an extensive network of relationships with editors and reporters in all kinds of business-oriented publications around the country. So they'll come into a community, they'll help them identify core strengths, stories that they might be able to tell that are positive about the community, and they essentially pitch those story ideas to publications like the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, USA Today, Fox News, so a variety of different venues as appropriate. We feel like Sioux Falls has a tremendous story to tell, and that it's a story that's not getting out as strongly as we would like in the national market. And so we thought it was appropriate for Forward Sioux Falls to include this in their in the case statement and in our program of work. So that is underway. They've made, I think, 3 trips to the community, interviewing people, and from a wide section of the community, they're following up with phone interviews and with online focus groups. We expect that they will be presenting their final findings sometime in September of this year. And then we'll move forward to carry out implement the recommendations that they make. The second thing that I'd like to call your attention to is that we've already talked about a little bit, and that is targeted industry promotion in trade journals. The consulting firm that we work with is the Boyd Company there. They will develop that comparative cost analysis for us. They'll publish that report. They'll carry that report around and to the specific trade publications and talk to the editors about it. And they often get published then, and inevitably when they get published, they talk about who's the highest cost location and who's the lowest cost location. And because we've kind of pre-vetted that before we ever gave the go-ahead for the report to be issued, we know that we're going to be in one of those very lowest cost locations. Right now, he's just wrapping up promotion of the medical device manufacturing industry sector. And as a result of his efforts there, we have been printed in 35 different publications, at least as of my last board meeting. I haven't updated these numbers since my last board meeting, but 35 different publications. And he had 12 industry requests specifically for, can I get a copy of this study? Previous to that, he did warehousing and distribution, which interestingly enough only got published in 16 publications, but produced 363 requests for the study. So it's really interesting the different, kind of spectrum of responses that you get to that. I talked already about the radio advertisements in the Twin Cities, and we want to continue that. That has been effective for the Development Foundation over the years, and we're going to keep that going. But then you can see kind of how this continues to funnel down. That's a little bit of what I was trying to illustrate here, is that we're trying to drive leads to our staff within the Development Foundation that we can follow up with. The final element of that is lead generation, and we've contracted with a firm called Gruber Phillips. And you can think of this as telemarketing to the corporate level suite. The president of the company, Amy Phillips, was actually in town week before last. And so we had an opportunity to tour her through the community and make sure she really understood what we have to offer. But we have engaged them to do telephone calls and get to a CEO or a CFO or a real estate manager and to have a conversation with them about the benefits of Sioux Falls and see if they are interested in either a visit or an ongoing discussion. And so if they are, then that again feeds into us as staff to work with over time. She started 3 weeks ago. So far we have 7 conference calls that have been scheduled as a result of that. Companies that have said, yes, I'd be interested in having a discussion with Sioux Falls. All of that feeds to our staff. Dean Dezek is our Director of Strategic Initiatives. He's the gentleman that is working on following up with these leads and is responsible for working with them. And we're providing a variety of tools in his tool basket as well so that he can go see them and we have dollars for him to visit them, or we have opportunities to bring a group of companies or consultants here to visit. So we're expanding kind of the tools in the toolbox for him as well. The final thing that I would say is really new for what we're working on is that we've always had an existing industry program, but like most economic development efforts, it's kind of been on an ad hoc basis. You hear about a company that has needs to expand, or worse, that they or the opposite of that they're looking at downsizing or something, and then you enter into a discussion with them and see how you can help them. We want to do that on a more formal basis, on a more structured basis. And so part of the plan going forward is to dedicate and have goals set about how many visits are going to be made, to have staff that are working on that on an ongoing basis with the companies that are already here. Because the reality is that study after study shows that about 80% of all job creation that will happen in your community happens as a result of the companies that are already in your community. So we don't want to make sure we don't want to overlook that as well. Okay. That's just a flavor for some of the things that we have going on. But I'd be glad to answer any questions that you might have.
Councilman Karski.
Thank you. I just want to recognize the work that you've done, Slater. It's great to hear that we've really refined and developed our approach, and that we have an active, I guess, talking as a person who's been in sales for over 20 years, that we have an active sales model, and we're pursuing leads, we're generating leads, we're pursuing them, and we're working to close the deal on stuff that is out there for us. So that's exciting, and I'm glad to see that you're doing that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilman Anderson.
I also want to commend everyone here that's doing all the work they're doing for downtown and for the entire city of Sioux Falls. One thing I wanted to say, the last thing you said is what I was waiting to hear, talking about existing industry and companies already here. In February, myself and Councilperson Erfenbach actually went to a seminar, National League of Cities, and that was one of their major points, was that existing businesses are creating a lot of jobs, and they also need the help. And these existing businesses have shown a commitment and a dedication to the areas that they're in now. And I think it's a great thing that we are working harder to recognize that industry and those businesses and try to help them right here in South Dakota.
Agreed.
Good. I have one other question. I would like to make that same comment too about dancing with the one who you brought to the dance, and that's great. We need to take care of the people who have brought us this far. And that's great. That's fantastic. Secondly, is there a reason these radio ads and things in Minneapolis have we looked beyond Minneapolis? It seems to me that our city is fine enough that we should be looking beyond just the Minneapolis-St. Paul area.
Well, we're absolutely looking at other geographic targets. We're working with Development Counselors International to determine whether radio ads would be the right media to do that or not. They are expensive. I mean, we spend basically $100,000 a year on radio ads in the Twin Cities. So you have to use that with discretion. I do know that we've considered Chicago. We look for some of the things that DCI has told me that they look at is they want to see a similar climate. So it's not as big a stretch for someone from Chicago to move to Sioux Falls as it is for someone from Southern California to move to Sioux Falls. They look for a direct flight connection because, again, if a company is relocating or putting new facilities, then they often want to be able to get back and forth in a very, expeditious manner. So those are some of the things that we're considering. I think we'll know a little bit more about where we're headed with that in September when they finish and present the results.
Good.
Rex, one more if I
Yes,
can.
go ahead.
Slater, have we ever looked at advertising in these airline magazines? When I was doing some travel here a little earlier this year, I noticed in reading through one of the magazines, Omaha had a full page, almost a 2-page advertisement talking about the benefits of Omaha. And I found it to be very intriguing because of the number of people that are traveling and flying that would be able to access this type of a magazine.
Right, absolutely. And again, we're kind of deferring that right now until we have some feedback from the experts because we don't want to, there's an awful lot of venues out there all anxious to take our limited resources and to extol, their ability to sell the community. In fact, within the last month, I've been approached by some of the radio programs that are on the airlines, by the some of the publications that are on the airlines, and then we often get approached by these kind of quasi-television shows that are on the internet and might be on a cable channel at 3 in the morning or something, you know. So we're just very, very cautious because they're very expensive. And so we're waiting. You know, DCI has worked with over 400 communities to help promote themselves. This is an area that I have limited experience in on what works and what doesn't. So we're going to wait until September when they come back and see what their recommendations are, and that'll probably drive any types of efforts like that. But we do have dollars through the Forward Sioux Falls campaign that are set aside for those type of promotional activities. We just want to have a plan in place on what's the best way to use those.
Oh, that's okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate the information. Very interesting, and just what we should be doing, in my opinion anyway, what we should be doing to promote our fine city. So thank you very much for a job well done.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Next up is Mr. Evan Nolte, President of the Chamber of Commerce and representing Forward Sioux Falls.
Thank you very much, Chair Rolfe, members of the Land Use Committee. First of all, we'd like to thank you, Slater and I, for the commitment that you've made to Forward Sioux Falls, and also remembering the start of the Future Sioux Falls program, the commitment that the City of Sioux Falls made with the Development Foundation, Chamber, Forward Sioux Falls, Minnehaha, Lincoln counties, the Sioux Falls Area Community Foundation, and United Way, because this really got us started. It during the start of the recession, and having someone come from outside in the form of Market Street Services, and developing that community-wide process, which ended up with a segment being made into Forward Sioux Falls 2011-2016. I think what you have, if you look at the goals, business retention, expansion and attraction, quality growth and advocacy, research, technology and entrepreneurship, workforce development, national marketing and public relations, management and communications. The point that should be made is all of these programs and goals are designed to work together to develop the kind of a result-oriented program that this city really deserves. And it reflects the competitive spirit and need that we have in going out and competing with other major cities. I think one of the things that we find, and as we talked about and Slater talked about, the national public relations effort that's going to be taking place once we get this blueprint completed by DCI, you have to have a quality product to be able to be successful in doing that. One of the things that we've really been pleased about is that we've heard from consultants on their one-on-one interviews and the other parts of the process with DCI, also Market Street Services when they did the community interviews with city, other public, local governmental, business and professional leaders and nonprofit groups, that this city has a special spirit. And we may all not realize that at all times, but it does. And the success that we've been able to have has come from working together in a partnership demonstrated by the economic development and community development efforts that are going on. A couple of quick things here. I know 7 o'clock's coming fast. One element of this program that's really been exciting, in addition to the success we've been having in terms of raising the funds that are going to be necessary to implement this program fully, is that we've been able to start work on a lot of the areas, working with the city and other groups. Air service, for example, we're underway on that. and work was being done in terms of attracting Frontier Airlines before this program fundraising is being completed. Now we have a person that's agreed to chair that effort, and we've identified other people from the public and private sector that will be working through that, working with the Sioux Falls Regional Airport Board. There's a lot of things, the public relations effort that Slater mentioned, that's underway. We were asked by them whether or not we should go to a further level of the program, or did we want a blueprint starting from the very beginning. We said we wanted a blueprint because we want to know what an objective outside view is, and if we only talk to ourselves, we're not going to be effective in that area. So we feel we've hired the very, very best public relations economic development firm in the country, and we hope to be able to succeed in that area. So again, I'd like to thank you all, and the final thing is I really credit the City Community Development and Planning Department working with the Development Foundation, Downtown Sioux Falls, the Convention Visitors Bureau. Again, the new bid program is very exciting, and that also will be interrelated in this. But we've been having regular meetings or coordination meetings of all these groups. And this is one thing that has been talked about for a number of years, but actually is happening now. And I think it can have nothing but good results. Thanks again. And again, we'd all be willing to answer any questions. Thanks.
Councilwoman Urbanbach.
Well, I wanted to start by thanking you all for hanging out this long with us. I appreciate that. I've been looking forward to this particular topic for a while, and I know that you guys know that. And a couple of comments. First of all, I want to commend all of you because, as Evan just said, we have talked about putting all of you guys in the same room for years. And it hasn't always come together that way in as smooth a way that it has, and so I appreciate that it's going that way. I appreciate that you were all able to come and report to us together. And I liked the idea, too, of, I, of course, echo what the guys have said about, focusing on the folks that we have here. We really need to do that. But I also like that idea of how we collectively want to serve as a resource to our partners from the city aspect, so that we are really interweaving the things that we're doing. So then my question is, probably for Darren and maybe for Erica, but what's next? And again, I've asked you this before. What is it that you need council to do, and how do we be part of this?
Well, thank you for the question. Well, there are a number of things. I think it'll start with, off the top of my head, I guess I would say starting with the 2012 budget that you'll be presented with very soon. There are dollars proposed in there to create a discretionary fund and work with the Development Foundation to get that program in place. And that is one thing I think that would be as big as anything. I mean, we hear that time and again talking to businesses where the incentives that we do have, they're just not a perfect fit. And Erica talked about this. Whether it's a property tax abatement or the sales tax rebate, it's just not a fit, and so we're left with nothing to entice them to either expand if they're already here or to move here. And incentives are the name of the game in other cities and states. So that is one. The other, I think, is again something Erica touched on. We're very excited about the 2 coordinator positions. And those are existing positions, and I want to make that clear that those were not new positions. Those are existing positions that have been repurposed for what we feel our needs are. And one, Brent will serve as that concierge. So when somebody comes in, whether again it's somebody local wants to expand or somebody from another community or state wants to move here, somebody who can hold their hand through the process. We work very closely with planning. I would say there are brothers in city government, brothers and sisters in city government, and public works, and even parks, and we could go on down the line. This new position with neighborhood redevelopment, and I think, a lot of this, maybe if I can just speak for myself, a lot of the things that I've seen over the last year and that I would like to change probably come from my time on the city council, so I have a little different perspective. That communication, customer service, and neighborhoods was the third. So for me, that's economic development isn't always the mega business that moves in. It's many, many other things. So that would be a few I would touch on. One last thing I did want to mention is also to kind of continue with, communicating this economic development stuff and how it works. One thing we'd really like to do is to invite either this committee or maybe it's the entire council. We'll figure out a way to do that. To have a working lunch meeting at the Development Foundation office. Maybe it's quarterly, maybe it's 3 times a year, and we have Slater's permission to do that. One of the things Slater does at his monthly board meetings that I attend that I really like is he provides a 1-page document front and back that tracks all the projects that many of us, or in many cases all of us, are working on. And it tells you where the project is, what stage it's in. Is it in the front end? Is it somewhere in the middle of the process, or are we getting close to the finish line? And it tells you what the needs are, the risks, all those things. Really like it if we could get you folks in, again, on some kind of regular basis, quarterly or something along those lines, because it really gives you some insight into how these projects come to fruition. And there's lots of projects that start and never cross the finish line, but it's a very long-term process also. For a project to come to fruition from start to finish in a matter of months is an anomaly. It almost never happens that quickly. And Slater and the others can talk about that. There are 2, 3, 4 years in the making sometimes, especially for the large projects. But I think it really gives you folks a glimpse into the process and also what you are supporting. If it's something in the budget or if it's our staff or whatever, it gives you an idea of what you are supporting and the need for those policies or in some cases other resources.
If I could just
Go
finish
ahead.
that. One of the things that we started out doing, it started before we went to Savannah, and then Savannah really brought it forward. You talk about that idea of what are we about as elected officials when it comes to economic development. That was huge for us. It was a huge message that, Councilor Aguilar, Councilor Anderson, and myself, we all came away from that, and I've attacked most of you, with this. Listen to us. We are elected officials. Help us be part of it. But I think that's critical to us as a community. Evan talks about that spirit that Sioux Falls has. It kind of starts here. If we aren't supporting that, if we aren't providing the kind of infrastructure, the kinds of funding mechanisms, the kinds of, those pieces that you need, you can economic development all you want if you don't have a good community to start with.
Yeah, the reality is, and I'm not just saying this, but it does all come back to the city council in one way, shape, or form. And of course, the mayor plays an important role in that too. But look at the partners we have here today, whether you're talking about support for our office to be able to do the things we want to do with our staff to change those priorities, funding for Forward Sioux Falls, for the Development Foundation, for Downtown Sioux Falls. We could go on and on down the list, the discretionary fund, the facade easement. There's a number of tools that it all comes back to the city council. And if a city council in any community isn't supportive, then yeah, you can talk a good game all day and you're not going to get anywhere.
Thanks for being here. I appreciate it, guys.
Thank you.
Councilman Anderson?
And to just add on what Michelle said, Evan, Slater, you have 8 very interested parties that sit up here every Monday. And one of the things we learned, whether you have a stakeholder group, a committee, whatever, we're interested. If you have a place where you can utilize our talents or we can help you in a way, please feel free to come. Myself and I think all the other council members would say the same thing. So please let us know, keep us informed, and we're there to help.
Thank
Even
you.
the guy sitting back there, Slater, might help. In fact, I'm so interested, and I think we all are, that I would like to have this continue, maybe on a quarterly or every 6-month basis, that we could have you guys back and give us this kind of a short summary. So let's take a look at this maybe in, let's see, it's July, August, September, maybe in October. Would that be okay?
That'd be great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Let's plan it again for October. You'll find that I like to to do that kind of thing, as you can probably tell, is to have it like that. So let's plan October for our calendar.
Okay.
October is another meeting date to invite you back and to do the same kind of an update. And I would love to see one of those progress reports, Slater. I think that would be an ideal thing to take a look at. Okay. Anything else?
I don't think so. Thank
Any
you for
other
having
questions
us.
from the committee? No. I got to ask. The fourth item on the agenda is open discussion. Is there? If I don't do this right, then Denise will get on me. Right? Yes. Is there any open discussion for the committee? Then Councilman Anderson.